going to be very explosive. And tonight, I've seen a lot of comments, a lot of feedback that we should also allow most of our participants to contribute. And I won't say much on that. Our moderator will take us through that. And of course, we are welcome to African Women in Leadership Organization. We are I could call it the organization that bring women leaders globally into the table. We've been doing this for the past 12 years. And I know a lot of you are members, and many of you have been following us. And I know also, because of this program, we're sharing our link on how to be part of this very important movement for women leaders, and of course, for gender-friendly men. We call them the he for she champions, men who believe in gender parity, men who believe that women have done so much, and we're just here to give our support. And so I would like everyone to be part of this movement. And at this point, I would like to invite the chairperson of this AWLO Zoom webinar, and it has become the new normal. Most of you know us for the physical meeting that we've been doing, but of course, thanks to COVID-19, that have even make us, go into the Zoom webinar that we're having the past 13 weeks, and the testimony have been enormous. And I want to appreciate everyone that made it possible for us to have this second part of this particular topic. At this point, I would like to introduce not just the chairperson of the webinar committee, she's also the coordinator of African Women in Leadership Organization in Los Angeles. I'm talking of Anze Mofo. Mofo, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Tai. Thank you again for your introduction. Before I go ahead to introduce the moderator for today, I would like to just state a few housekeeping. Please just make sure to keep your phones muted. We have a few hosts that will be happy to help you to stay muted if there is a speaker that's actually speaking at the time. And if you are doing something behind the scenes, please just be kind to mute your videos. This is a very sensitive topic, and we would want to be able to keep everybody engaged so that there are no distractions. Make sure that you use the command buttons if you would like to raise your hand, you like to ask a question, or you want to wave or clap. You can use the command buttons and familiarize yourself with the chat room. The chat room is there for you to share and make comments and ask questions. If you would like to ask questions, and these questions will be selected as well. And if there is enough time, we can go over some of those questions. The moderator will handle that perfectly. If you have the name of an organization that helps victims of rape and violence, please make sure to share it with us, either to me privately or to the private chat room, so that we can add to our list to provide support to the people that need it the most. And without much ado, I would like to introduce Professor Achibong, and let me just say a little bit about her. She's a professor of diversity at the University of Bradford, where she directs the Center for Inclusion and Diversity and provides a strategic oversight for equality and diversity across the institution. She's a member of the Order of the British Empire, and Professor Achibong is a very, very dynamic and engaging moderator. She makes every effort to simplify the conversation for everyday practice, and you would notice that with me today, that she will bring her experience to bear in engage any and every stakeholder that we need for an effective result for this Zoom today. So Professor Achibong, we thank you for your time and welcome.
Thank you so much, Anze, for that fantastic introduction. And if you're just wondering whether that is true, yes, it is. I'm here. Hello, everybody. It's a real pleasure to be here. Sometimes I try to create joy when there shouldn't be joy. So please bear with me if I try to create joy in the midst of such a turbulence and very difficult conversation. The topic, deculturalization, is a fantastic one, because what it's actually saying is, yes, we want to get rid of this culture. The culture of rape is not one that we should keep. If there is ever a negative culture that we should get rid of, it should be this one. So tonight is an opportunity for us to join our voices to say, not all cultures should be imbibed. Not all cultures should define Africa. So as Dr. Tai already mentioned, we started off this discussion on rape a few weeks back, and we gave all the context. We talked about why we have it. We tried as much as possible to stay a bit contained, because at some point I thought that we were all going to die, but we didn't. We survived that day to talk today about ways forward, looking at exactly how and what actions needs to be done. So we've got 4 eminent speakers who are going to come at this from so many perspectives. So my role as a moderator is to bring those voices in to have a conversation, but open it up so we can go through a small circle and have a bigger circle to come together to unite our voice around the topic of deculturalization of rape in Africa. But above all, to look at solutions. Solutions. We cannot get off from today's session just thinking about, oh, how difficult pity parties. We've got as a people to come together and create hope and work through the solutions that we need for these victims. My role will be to introduce the speakers, and I'll give them opportunity to talk to us. To start off with about 4-ish minutes, just talking through their description of the theme. We have 2 parts to today. The first part is looking at deculturizing rape in Africa. The second part will be looking at solutions. So the 4 speakers, I will introduce them individually, and they have 4 minutes to start off with to just give a context around the theme. And then we'll get into questions and answers, and I will then put the questions to the panel members. And I really want us to keep this really, really tidy, tight, focused, so that we can move on to the next part, which is about finding effective solutions. And that is Dr. Yewande Austin, who is crowned Chief of Obosi Kingdom for her dedication in the African diaspora. Dr. Yewande is a multiple award-winning lecturer, social activist, and honorary U.S. cultural ambassador. What we've agreed as a team is that I'm not going to read everything. We'll leave this bio up in and out as Yewande is speaking, so you can pick the rest. But I have worked very closely with Yewande under AWLO. She's smiling because we love dancing together. But here is a woman who's got so much passion for what I would call as equality, full stop, equality in everything. So if you're thinking about girl, children, women, Black people, you name it, she comes with so much passion. And what I'd like her to do is just start us off, just giving us a little context around deculturalizing rape in Africa. And you've got 4 minutes. And then I'll move on to the next speaker and so on. At the end, then people will start asking questions of you. So welcome, Yewande. Please take the microphone from me and talk. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much to you and Dr. Atai and African Women in Leadership Organization for creating such an important platform once again to discuss gender parity and equality for all girls and women around the world. So all of my panelists and audiences know that we are currently faced with a double public health crisis. One that has already killed over 1 million people around the world in just the last five months, being COVID-19, and the other rape, which has sadly destroyed the lives of over 30 million women around the world. Unfortunately, rape is not new to any of us. Sadly, I think that we also have to look at, when we talk about rape, we have to talk about other forms of sexual coercion and control that so many of us are intimately familiar with, from sexual coercion to abuse, assault, and harassment. Rape has penetrated absolutely every aspect of our society and destroyed so many lives and dreams from impacting the world. Unfortunately, more recently, government-mandated lockdowns have left more girls and women vulnerable to rape, sex trafficking, and child marriage than ever before. But long before the pandemic, we know historically that rape has also been used to control communities, weaken communities, and destroy lives, because we know that women are the backbone of every society. Rape is a complex issue in that it has infiltrated every aspect of our society. The influences are very strong, but solutions come down to two parts that I'd love to engage in later on in our conversation, and that comes down to national policy and culture. Our men are enculturated into oppressing girls and women from the time they come out of the womb. So we must start within our homes and society, including business practices where rape and sexual harassment have become now normalized.
Thank you very much for that. Thanks, Yewande. That was really sharp and to time. Thank you ever so much. And I will be coming back to you when we have questions. Please, before I call our next speaker, may I remind people to type in your questions in the chat room and just make sure that at least we gain things from there. We'll pull them together. In addition, people will be given opportunities to contribute as well. So thanks, Yewande. The next person, our next speaker, is, I'm going to do this. He's my in-law. I can tell you that. I'm so proud. Mr. Alibaba himself, a professional award-winning comedian for 30 years, with many awards, including a Diamond Award for helping the growth and development of the comedy industry in Nigeria. He's featured in CNN Voice for Africa, a he for she honored Phenomenal Man of the Year recognition for paving the way for a new generation industries. I'm just doing this because I'm buying time for that bio to get on the central feed, and then we can get Mr. Alibaba. Are you there? Can you just speak to us? 4 minutes, please.
Thank you so much for letting me part of this. Over time, I have done studies on why we have this issue of rape happening all the time. And what I see is that we are into sympathizing with victims, looking for punishments for the perpetrators, and we miss the main culture that needs to be addressed. And so today I'm going to be like on a different path, but still in the purpose of making sure that rape ends. And so deculturizing rape for me starts with the causes. One thing is that we are in a society that's where we shame the people who come out to say, I have this issue. And when you do that, there's a tendency that when people are faced with those kind of situations, they don't want to come out to say, this is what I have experienced. The other thing that happens is that we have a society where we prefer to protect the name of a family than expose perpetrators of things like this. So you have in a family of maybe let's use one very rich man. I'll get a fictitious name. Wilberforce is a very rich family. They have money, they have everything, and their son rapes a girl. They would rather keep it quiet so that the name of the family is not tainted, and just continue like that. What is happening is that we've gotten to a society where the minority culture, the women who have been raped are considered a minority. Oh, they're not much, so we should not even dwell on it and just forget about it. And then people then appease the girl who has been raped to keep quiet. I'll round up like this and say, until we begin to deal with the main causes, I'm not talking about the consequences, I'm talking about the causes of rape, we will not deculturize this. We need to get to the base. Why do men rape? Frustration is an excuse. The men who we're raising a lot of men these days that do not even have the confidence to step up to a woman to say, hi, how are you? Can I have your number? So we're raising poorly developed men whose weakness can only be strengthened by doing things that shouldn't be. So we need to go to that point where we need to raise stronger men and raise men who appreciate women more. And I think I will cede the floor to every other person and say that in all of this, some women even still encourage the fact that rape victims should not be punished, especially when they are related to the man involved. They will say, let's just let this go. Let's forget it. But the person that is involved will live with the pain all through her life. So I think that while we're talking about this today, we should address the causes of rape, the causes, before we get to the consequences and that the victims have to live with. Thank you.
Well, thank you ever so much. I usually just pull out a few things as I'm going on, but I decided today that I wanted the speakers to say it, and then before we get into the questions, I will just pick a few lessons for me. If you want to take those lessons, fine, but I'll do it that way. So I can actually start, and I can start by summarizing what I heard from Yewande about the need for us to have a more structural approach to this, which means that business practices, national policies, and cultures must shout against normalization of rape. So it is, rather than looking at the symptoms, but looking at the fabric and architecture of our organizations and our society to ensure that it can never be accepted as normal. There was a push that senior leaders must reinforce laws against rape. So that was what I picked from that very top level. Let's not really think at this from a symptomatic, but a more root case approach. And that was what Alibaba was saying again about the fact that punishing perpetrators is okay, but it shouldn't really be the only thing we do, that we need to look at the roots culture, the main causes, the things that are actually embedded. We seem to be looking at symptoms without looking at exactly the root of these problems. So what are the causes? And he gave a few causes, but I like the fact that Alibaba was not just talking about the causes as poorly developed men. He also challenged us around the role of women in normalizing, in supporting, in encouraging silence. And for me, those were the key things that I picked from those two speakers. Is us working around honor is going to put us to shame. The stigma is going to kill us, and therefore let's kill that woman by holding and covering their mouths, the way this photo is showing us. It is my pleasure to introduce the next speaker, Dr. Chika Nyo-Etok, who has extended record of making huge strides and change in the health and medical field that I know personally. She is a diligent public health physician and a fellow of the Health Literacy Leadership Institute of Tufts University School of Medicine in Boston, Massachusetts. It's a real pleasure to invite Chika to speak to us. Dr. Chika.
Hello, good evening.
Hello, I can hear you.
Okay. Thank you. And good evening to all you distinguished ladies and gentlemen, panelists and participants. It's really an honor to me to speak to this distinguished audience and to share experiences, share ideas, and hopefully find practical, actionable things that we can do about this epidemic of rape in our society. Unfortunately, I have to call it an epidemic. I want to start by saying, when I was asked to talk about this very difficult topic, I called to mind 3 different scenarios that have come to my attention at one time or the other. One was the case of a young man who raped his aunt, his mother's sister. The other one was, I think it was widely reported in the papers or on social media, I don't remember which, when it happened. And it was a case of male students of a secondary school who in broad daylight raped girls who were from a neighboring secondary school while people were walking along and observing it. And it was said to be a yearly ritual at the end of their exams every year. Difficult scenario where it took an older woman who observed what was going on and saw the indifference of passers-by, and she intervened and she had to call for help. She had to lead those girls out of that place that day, but is she going to be there every day? I want us to look at a society that sees young boys, students raping young girls in broad daylight, and everybody observes it and just walks on. And we know that there are all kinds of consequences that rape victims suffer from: physical, but almost more important, and definitely for a much longer period, psychological and sociological. And many of them, from the studies, show that they have these symptoms for at least a year. Many victims have problems for years. And the problem we also have is the paucity of psychological healthcare services in our society. The stigma that even comes from consulting one. But even if you were to remove the stigma, how many psychiatrists do we have in Nigeria? How many psychologists do we have? How many trained counselors do we have? Who can people speak to so that they have a sense of belonging? They know they are being heard, and someone can help them through these difficult situations that they go through as a result of rape. These are the issues we have to look at. And I do agree with the distinguished Alibaba in saying that we have to start by looking at the causes, because you have to start from the causes before you can begin to say, okay, these are the solutions. And in public health, usually we look at things from the angle of prevention. And we talk about levels of prevention: primary prevention, secondary prevention, tertiary prevention. The primary prevention usually is, how do we prevent this from happening at all? What are the things that we need to do so that we ensure that it never, ever happens? And the other levels of prevention, we bring them in to say, okay, if this has happened, how can we make sure that the trauma stops here? It doesn't go on. So at different levels, there are different interventions that we have to think of how to bring in. I think I've used up my time, so let me stop here.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chika. I think you've really added to the bits that I had already summarized. But I think I like your approach to just saying that deculturalization and so on has got to be looked at all levels. But the big thing is how methodical and systemic is our approach to challenging this problem. And the 3 levels that you identified, I think, is really crucial. But the big one is, for me, when you said, how do we stop it from happening? Because we're not going to try and look for solution if we can actually stop it and uproot it from its roots. So thank you very much for that. So we've got 3 speakers and they're all spoken. And there was a question in the chat room, and it was from Magistrate Umana asking the question. The question is, why would frustration in men create, be a reason for men to rape a woman.
Okay, but what most people don't understand is that rape creates a trauma that is traditionally passed down, sometimes throughout generations. And so the survivor of rape, their brain has not only been impacted by that trauma, either experiencing it themselves or witnessing it, but they start likening that to a form of power. And men are socialized to see their member as a form of power. So in an unstable community, men would defer to rape as taking control of a person, hence giving them some power back. Not an acceptable form of claiming your power, but one that we see time and time again. Now that's of course not just in disadvantaged communities. We have seen cases of rape that happened at a national level, and one where senior leadership, like one of my other panelists referred to, happens commonly. Dr. Atai knows that I have been trying to raise funds to build this community for 200 of the 4.5 million at this point, I'm sorry, 2.5 million Nigerians that have been displaced by conflict with Boko Haram. And that village would have been built by now, had very influential and powerful men in Nigeria not expected me to either lay down with them or become a third or fifth wife in order to get the funds that I need to protect other girls and women from sexual assault or trafficking. It is a cycle that needs to be corrected, and I agree also that it needs to start at the preventative level. In the area of humanitarian aid, based on my research, there are 3 forms of human development that are critical, and that's prevention, intervention, and rehabilitation. We spend a lot of time talking about intervention and rehabilitation and not investing enough time in preventative methods.
Thank you very much for that. I have seen Mr. Alibaba. Yeah, you can come in now. Thanks, Yewande.
Sure.
What I'm saying is that when a woman can pay her bills, it helps not to put her in a position where she becomes someone looking for help, that then makes the person have the power of saying, if you want this, then you have to give me that. Well, those are some of the things. The last question that I want to deal with that someone asked is, are there really causes of rape? Okay, I don't know if you have followed some recent reviews and researches. It is that a lot of the men that confess tell you, if I were not high on drugs, I wouldn't have raped her. I don't know if anybody here has heard of it. So the people have adduced the reason they raped some people because they had drug issues. Then some other people said the other thing is their inferiority complex. I can't talk to a woman. I can't make a woman say yes, and so the best way is to forcibly make her allow me. You know, there are several. No, please don't get it wrong. Don't ever be one of those people that believe that there cannot be causes of rape. No, when we say causes of rape, is that what puts men in a position that they then rape somebody. That is what needs to be tackled, and a lot of men need. I was talking to someone one time, and he said this. He said, "Look at how she's dressed. Look at how she's dressed. How can she be dressed like that and still be?" And then they will now say, "Oh, I was raped." You see, what that has done is that this is an uninformed man, and so the lack of education and the lack of information can then make him think that because a woman is dressed, there's a song that says, "I'm not my hair, I'm not my." It is not how the woman is dressed. Even if she's naked, if you walk into a room and she's naked, if she doesn't say yes, you can't sleep with her. That is the message that we need to pass on to people. But the thing is, when you do not think that a lot of men have that as a problem, then you will miss it, which is why I said the causes are the things we need to begin to deal with and tackle right away, because the causes are what then become excuses for having done it. The people then want to put it up as an excuse. I'm sorry, I did this because of alcohol. I did this because of, but let's build confidence in men. Let's tell them about being the chivalry. Let's make them know that from when they're young, and we should also stop making women or young girls like subservient to men. Stop making. Then we when we do that, we encourage it. When we do that, we actually are contributing to the numbers of people. I think those are the questions that were passed on to me. If there's any other question that I've not tackled, I'll be ready to take that on.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Alibaba. There is there ever any justification for rape? Dr. Yewande, please, can you just answer that?
Absolutely not. There's never a justification for rape, but I also think that we can't completely be surprised that rape exists. In many cultures around the world, rape and aligned with other forms of sexual coercion are introduced very early into a child's life. You look at Malawi, how there are certain tribes that force their young girls between the ages of 10 and 13 years old to engage in a sexual act with the man who is identified as a hyena. A hyena's sole role is to break the virginity of a young girl. From a cultural perspective, their reason is preparing that girl to be a good mate to a future husband. But we know what that does. A girl who is introduced to sexual behavior of any kind, whether it is voluntary or involuntary, there's a very strong chance that that girl may become hypersexualized, and furthermore, that she may accept certain acts of sexual violence because sex has now become normalized to her. There's never any justification for a girl being violated in any form or fashion. Also in Malawi, you have infant girls who are raped by men who have been cursed by AIDS. Unfortunately, an idea that is perpetuated by medicine men, that if they engage in a sexual act with even an infant girl child, that they will be cured of AIDS. So when you see repetitive occurrences of this throughout culture, we can't be surprised that rape exists, but we must invest in more preventative practices, and I'm fully in agreement with the panelists. It starts with culture, but I believe that it must be implemented by national leadership.
Thank you very much for that. May I invite Tracy Ume to ask your question? Tracy Ume.
Hello, good evening, everybody. Yeah, I was just asking, like, we all talk about female raping or girls raping, but like I've seen a lot of guys that has been raped when they were young, and it really affected them now that they are grown.
Right.
So,
yeah,
the question is like, how do we, tackle boys raping boys as well, or older women raping the boys as well? Because we found out that it is those boys that were raped that eventually rapes. I'm not giving it as an excuse, but they say hot people.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Tracy. Is there any panel member who wants to pick that up? Mr. Alibaba.
All right. I would like to first say that when we're talking about the rape of women, and you bring up the issue of the rape of men, it's like saying Black Lives Matter and somebody says White Lives Matter too. I think in ratio of women to men that have been raped, I would think that we are looking at like 20 to 1. It's a ratio of about 20 to 1 of women that have been raped and men that have been raped. So sometimes I've made the argument somewhere before and said women are raped, men are molested, because the classification really doesn't. You don't find that the women who then have those sexual intercourse with those young boys at the time beat them black and blue, denied them appointments or something like that. We can adduce to like the case of Joseph in the Bible, where the Potiphar's wife threw him into jail. I understand, but the point I'm trying to make is that at this point where we're trying to deal with this world and global mayhem, we need to deal with that too, but it is not right on the front burner, but we just need to. Then the other thing is there's no justification. Please don't get me wrong. I think in the chat, someone probably must have gotten the belief that my argument is trying to justify rape. I hope no one in this platform believes that I am justifying rape. By no standards at all. It is a no. I'm not justifying rape. I'm just telling you, I needed to bring out a lot of reasons that have been given, and I'm saying that if those are the reasons that are making people rape, then we should begin to deal with the causes, deal with that thing, deal with it. If it is because I cannot communicate with a girl or talk to a girl and get her to win her over, then teach men to be confident of themselves. Teach them to be able to approach anybody and take, because the other thing they say is the fear of rejection. The fear of rejection. I may talk to her and she doesn't like me, and it will hurt your what? You get stronger. When we were much younger, which is why I think that we need to do a lot more now for a lot of young men. We used to brag about the fact that I was able to talk to her and win her over. But these days, either men are not being taught on how to approach a woman, talk to her, win her over, and so people just think the best thing to do is to gang rape her, and leads to the question of cultism that somebody raised in the chat room. The reason for cultism is that a lot of people who are weak, a lot of weak men now find strength in cultism. And when they find that strength in cultism, they then look for easy targets and low-hanging fruits. And so they bring those women. So you just say, okay, who is the person that you like and you can't talk to? Because now they have a power that they never had before, and then jump on it under the pretext of cultism and peer pressure, and then get a woman, get a young girl somewhere, rape her, and feel like it makes them macho. So my point is, we still need to tackle this thing from the beginning. Not that it is a justification. What I'm saying is a lot of people believe that those are the things that should be taken as the excuse for them to have done something. So let's tackle that from the beginning, and so we'll get it out of the way. So please, again, we understand that a lot of men still get raped, but a study has also shown that one of the reasons that many women get raped is because of physical disadvantage. The word physical disadvantage. It could be financial disadvantage. It could be physical, because a lot of the men overpower the people that they rape. When they cannot overpower the people that they rape, they use drugs. So it means that you have to make the woman powerless. So you make her powerless by not giving her money. You make her powerless by either drugging her. You make her powerless by making her helpless. And you make her powerless by making her not have any other option. So those are the things that I'm talking about. Let's empower our women. Let's give them the service. There are certain women that some men will not even dare to want to go and rape. Would you want to step up into a room with Serena Williams and say, drop your pants? She will first beat you black and blue first before you then think of even getting close to her. But what I'm trying to say is we need to also begin to teach that the empowerment of women will strengthen them to the point that people will not take advantage of them. That is the point.
Ude, if I could address one other point, I think that's very important when we talk about men raping boys, or perhaps older boys raping other boys. I touched on this very briefly earlier, and of course there's just not enough time to take a really deep dive into any of these topics, but we cannot underestimate the power of trauma. So most people believe that trauma is psychological, but with aggressive and violent sexual acts that are perpetuated on a girl or a boy, it has not just affected them psychologically or emotionally, but on a cellular level. That means the earlier that a human being experiences trauma, it has not only impacted the growth of their brain, but the shape of their brain and their ability to make more concrete and sound decisions. So for a young girl or boy to be introduced to sex of any kind at a very early age, it has indelibly changed the shape and behavior by which they will lead their lives. For a young boy to be experienced to sex and sexual violence at an early age now means that aggressive sexual behavior has become a part of his language, or a tool that he uses to either regain his power, to resolve conflict, and to express himself. So what we have to do is make sure that that young boy at an early age is not excused for being a boy. He is not excused because, well, all boys do this or all men behave that way, but we must intervene at the earliest stages of a young boy's life to teach him a different set of tools. So again, if sexual aggression is a tool that he has learned from his own sexual violence, or exposure to sexual violence, if he himself was not violated, then we have to provide a new set of tools. And that is to teach a young boy or girl how to resolve conflict peacefully. And that does not include violating another human being. Mm-hmm. But the greatest intervention method that we can use on a local level is to make sure that a boy knows that the behavior is wrong and that he can make better choices.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Yewande and Alibaba did contribute earlier. What I'm hearing from the contribution so far is how apt it is to actually support children, sex education in schools, things that we need to do to actually get it in the fabric of growing up. I've heard that very strongly. I've got a note here to say that Chief Teresa Chandimoto from Inkosi, Malawi, dissolved over 3,500 early marriages and 155 boy fathers, and insisted that education for boys and girls and early sex education is a massive tool that we must use. Right, all right, so let me move on then. We've got 5 minutes to go before we can take a quick break and come back onto part 2 of this. So there's a lot here in the chat room reminding us that it's never good to blame victims. We can't be thinking for any reason that what you wear and so on should be a reason for anybody to even think about rape. That we've got a few people just reminding us that we cannot make excuses, and I think it's a very, very good and well-positioned comment about it is not okay, never okay. Drugs, alcohol, whatever is not okay, is not okay. And I can repeat that several times. But issues of sexual molestation, issues of just looking at abominations like actually fiddling with young babies in nappies can never be okay. And there is something in the chat room that is giving us that reminder. So we really, really need to say this time and time again. Part of our deculturizing behavior is to say that it's not okay. Alibaba said something very good about we've got to get into a point where relationships in marriages are not taken for granted. And so, Mamwa, pick the microphone and ask your question about marriages and rape, please.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Hello, panelists. I just have a quick question. With regard to marriages, we talk about rape of children, boys and girls, but in relationships, we really do not address the issue of rape. Just because it's supposed to, we understand that it's something that is expected in relationships. Could we highlight that and see how we can tackle that as well?
Right, okay. Dr. Yewande, can you
Yes.
just start that conversation and then I'll pass on to Mr. Alibaba.
Certainly. So I can also speak to a situation that I've been dealing with in Nigeria where there is a lot of bad behavior, aggressive behavior that's taking place among families that are waiting for a safe haven. And at some point, I had to rethink the sustainable model that I've developed, and I gathered the women on one of my trips to Abuja. And after hearing about so much rape and abuse being perpetuated on these women by the men in their homes, I had to ask, do you really want the husbands to move with you into the village? Because I'm not going to tolerate abuse or destructive behavior of any kind in this community. It must be a safe space where absolutely every resident can be their very best selves. I wanted them to have an opportunity to say yes or no before I made the decision myself. And surprisingly, all of the women said to me, no, we want our men to move into the community with us as a whole family, but they need to be taught better. This behavior broaches on both sides for both girls and boys at a very early age. If we empower our girls at the early stages of life, you know, and there's a reason, I deflect just for one moment, regress rather, there's a reason that when a country is in the middle of conflict, that they choose to weaponize rape. They used raping women as a core tactic above and beyond the use of guns. Why? Because they know that women are the backbone. And if they weaken the community, if they want to weaken the community, then they weaken their power source, and that is women. Men know the same thing and they bring that into the relationships. So if we empower girls that their bodies are a temple and they have full control over their bodies at a young age, and we remove behaviors like the hyena that is given permission to violate a girl, if we remove those practices from culture and empower girls at a young age to be in control of their bodies, control of their futures, control of money, education, careers that they choose, then we have empowered young girls with a voice that they can use to say no, even in a marital setting. But it must start with the culture of family on a community level.
Thank you so much. Such a strong advice about the role of families. Mr. Alibaba, do you want to say a few words? Can you keep it really short for us?
The issue here, which is like one of the questions that have been asked, is that we need to begin to raise men who see sexual attraction beyond the physical. Men who see sexual attraction beyond the physical. We need to raise those kind of men. There's several men, and I've been working with a lot of young men, and when I tell them to write a short note and tell me what the problem is between talking to a woman and leading you to rape and all of that stuff. And a lot of them said they don't know how to talk to women. They don't know how to carry on a conversation. So we're raising men who do not know how to communicate. And they become adults who do not also know how to communicate. And they feel like the only way they can get a woman is give her money or use force. So we need to begin to train that into men. An untrained man cannot have a meaningful conversation with a woman. I'm pushing it when I say for at least 30 minutes. I'm pushing it when I say for at least 30 minutes. A lot of untrained men cannot have that conversation. So what they normally just do is that anytime they are with a woman is either sex, and then when they then have opportunity to ask for the sex and she does not want to give it to them, there's something about the ego of such untrained men that makes them feel a woman that turns them down should be punished. That is, we have that problem. It's a big problem, and it must start from training the male child. The male child needs to be properly trained to avoid these issues.
Thank you so much for that. We've come to the end of the first part of this. There are one or two questions that we might carry over to the next bit. I think the congest your emotions in readiness for the next section, which is strictly going to be about solutions. Well, if we were to leave this conversation now and we wanted to do something tomorrow morning, what might that be? We want to be very practical in our next sessions.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Everyone. Thank you, Professor Akibang. That was very intense. Thank you to all the panelists, Yewande and Alibaba and Dr. Chika. It's been amazing to just, I can't say amazing with the topic, but it's refreshing to be able to hear all of this comments and contributions to how we can find a solution from the very deeper ends of our hearts and our communities. One thing that I would like to say while we're on this break is that AWLO has made it a point to create a hotline where if you know anyone that is going through a difficult situation or has experienced rape and they are not able to contact the authorities and they're afraid to be shamed and they just want to reach out to someone, that email will be displayed here on this chat room. And please pass it on to them, or if you are someone that needs help, please send us an email and we will make sure to find help in your local area. Anywhere in Africa, if you're in South Africa, Nigeria, Cameroon, Kenya, Malawi, and you do not know where to go. While we're trying to create solutions that can create legislation to hold these perpetrators accountable and to teach our young boys better ways of treating women, we are also going to find solutions that can be effective to help rape victims, whether they're boys, but mostly the women. So I would ask you to reach out. It's helpalert@awlo.org, helpalert@awlo.org. Please make sure to reach out. The second thing I would like to say is there is a very dynamic team that is putting up this webinars. As you've noticed, they come on every other week, every 2 weeks or so. And this team are young leaders that volunteer their time to AWLO because they're learning leadership expertise, training them, and they're learning how to be great leaders tomorrow. And if they're volunteering their time and making sure that they provide this support, we want to call on everyone to be able to provide as much support as you can. We will also display a donation link. If you find it in your heart to want to support these young leaders, please go to awlo.org/donate. We have several different links that you can donate to. You can either donate by PayPal if you're in the United States, you can donate by Zelle, or there are other links if you're in Africa and you cannot access Zelle or PayPal, there are other ways you can donate from Africa. These will really help to empower our youth. Africa is made up of over 60% of youth, and we want to make sure that if we're complaining about our leaders today, we're training the young people tomorrow that when they become leaders, they will know what to do, and we have to support them. So AWLO will be very grateful if you can make some contributions to support the volunteering team. There is Ben Imo, who is handling the tech department. There is Ekimini Pakpan, who is handling the administrative department, and there is Bello, who is also involved in the writing department. So there are a couple more. I will have to list their names later on, but I will really ask for your support to help this team and to also support AWLO, because AWLO is doing a great job at helping training leaders, and in support with He for She. There is a lot of amazing men out there that have partnered with AWLO to support the women to be able to make sure that they are great leaders and they accomplish and serve their purpose. Like Alibaba said, the men are supposed to support the women as much as the women will support the men. So thank you again for your time. Please take a little break. While you are on the break, we'll just display a number of organizations that are supporting rape victims in different countries. About AWLO, please go to awlo.org and check out some of the work that AWLO is doing. AWLO is actually in about 23 countries in the United States, Europe, and Africa. And they're doing a lot of work to be able to empower women to serve in their position as leaders in the community, in their various communities. So thank you again for attending. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your support while we wait for the next part to begin.
A few areas, but I picked out 3 questions for me that would lead us nicely into the next slot, which is to look at solutions. And we talked a lot about the role of education in that first segment, but I picked out a name, Treasure Aga Chuku. What advice would you give to a young girl like me who is just 14, so passionate about taking the fight against rape and other human rights abuses to a national and global stage? I have only been doing that through my poems and only recently joined Amnesty International. I wish to galvanize this passion greatly. So we've got a young woman here, 14, who wants to take this fight up and work with us. So for me, the next section is really about what solutions do we have, not just at all intersections of age, but we're also looking at intersections of gender, the role of men, the role of women, the role of families. How do we ensure that men can take this responsibility alongside women? I have another question from Kosiso Eze. Why can't we just teach men not to rape instead of putting all the responsibility to stop rape on the woman? Panelists, I'm not trying to make it difficult, but I'm just giving you examples of what people want to hear from you in the next segment. So what I want to do, and this time, please not 4 minutes, but 3 minutes, if you can quickly just outline some things, and then we move on between the 3 of you, quickly outlining some solutions, and then we'll open up for audience participation. So this time I'm going to go on the reverse and start with Dr. Chika Nyo-Etok. If you can start by just giving us top tips, stop solutions. You've got 3 minutes. Are you back with us, Dr. Chika?
Hello, I'm back with you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, thank you very much. So can you lead now, please?
Yes, please permit me to have my video off so I can go on with you. So in terms of solutions, you know, earlier when I spoke, I talked about the different levels of prevention, primary, secondary, and tertiary. And I remember, Prof, you mentioned that we want primary, we want to prevent rape from happening at all. And I am with you completely. But you see, as we're preventing further cases of rape, we have victims of rape all around us, and we must help them. So that's where the secondary and tertiary can come in. But to quickly say the levels, the ways in which I think we can bring in prevention, one, we have to start from the family, the smallest unit of a society where all the socialization begins. We have to reverse the things that we have taught our children as they grow up. Boys must do that and girls must do that. There must be parity, that gender parity in the roles and responsibilities. We don't have to give anything a color. We must teach our children to have mutual respect, boys for girls. There is a cultural tendency to have girls serve boys, even when they are siblings. You take a girl to go and get the food and serve your brother. Your brother has eaten, take the plates and go and wash. You know, subtle things that we don't think about. So we consciously and unconsciously socialize our children into thinking that the female is the one that serves, you know, and the male does the more important things and takes the big decisions, you know what I mean? So we have to rethink how we socialize our children in our families. We have to celebrate our female children when they excel in things that we traditionally think are male sort of things, you know. One very important thing I think we need to also pay attention to is we need to teach respect for boundaries. Whatever your frustrations are, whatever your problems are, everybody is frustrated by one thing or the other. If we all go and assault each other each time we're frustrated, then there's going to be chaos in the society. So we must teach respect for boundaries, delayed gratification. You can't always have something because you want it now. You know, if we inculcate these things into our children early when they are young, it becomes easier when they become adults for them to know this is a no-go area. I can't go, I can't cross this line. And some people say that boys learn to be men from the men in their lives. So the he for she champions is a really important avenue through which we can make some impact in society. You know, we have to get our champions to speak up because we as women, we will continue to speak up, but we need the men to speak up even more. If not, you know, there's that tendency for people to say, oh, never mind these raging feminists, you know. We need to have the men speak up and say, respect for boundaries, we must have it. Delayed gratification, you must have it. Women's rights are human rights, you know, and we need to have these messages. I don't know, maybe put them in social media, put them on the television as adverts, even billboards all over the place, because it's an epidemic. We have to put it in the face of everybody. Then we look at schools. I want to see that, you know, the school is a place that is the second place after the family where you have a lot of socialization going on. And we encourage a compulsory free basic education for every girl child, of course, but we need to put in programs that help to promote healthy self-esteem in girls. We need to profile and teach our teachers. Pick the ones that have the qualities that we can train and give them skills to be counselors in the school. Because we need people who work not just at home, but also in the school to help these children. If they have people they can speak to, if they have someone who is trying to do something, then they should have a trusted adult that they can speak to, who will advise them and guide them through a difficult situation and not let it happen at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Chika. It is your turn now, Mr. Alibaba.
Right, so this is it. The first thing is we need to teach our children that they are all equal from when they're young, that they are all equal. As a first son, I grew up with 7 older sisters, and my dad did not want me to do anything in the house. And so when my dad leaves the house, my sisters were all told to his instructions. They make sure my food was ready, they make sure everything was ready. But as soon as he leaves, they made me do so many things that my dad would not have allowed me to do because, oh, he's a son, he's a son, he's a son. Now, we need to begin to deculturize all that aspect of our lives. We need to begin to make sure that children, because the question that, the issue that the last speaker just mentioned now, when these people are in class, I was in class, I normally, well, these were the days where you had positions. I come 5th, I come 6th, and the first, second, third position were like the girls in the class. They were very intelligent. One of them is a professor now in Oklahoma. But you see, we need to begin to teach equality to children. Let's stop this patriarchal philosophy of the male child syndrome and making women like second class, because that is where it begins. So the men, some children then grow to become, so little boys then grow to become men that think that women are second class sex to them. Until we begin to deal with that, we'll continue to have some of these issues. And that is why some of these men now, even in the National Assembly, are priding themselves of having women that can talk to them in the National Assembly. A woman raises an objection and a member of the parliament will say, I have a woman like you and she can't talk to me like this. Those are the kind of things that we need to begin to deal with. And until we do that, we cannot decluster the cabinet.
Thank you very much. That was you just skipping straight to time. Thank you, Alibaba. And may I call Dr. Yewande to just give your own solutions, please. 3 minutes.
Sure. I addressed some of these earlier, but at the risk of being redundant, I think that all of us are in agreement that culture is the most powerful weapon in the fight against rape. Just as we can create a culture that destroys the confidence of girls and women, that teaches women that they are to serve and not lead, we can also change that culture to empower girls and women and to teach at the earliest stages in every human's life that women are leaders and educators and protectors, and also serve their community in a way that makes the community better. We all know that when you empower a girl, you not only change her family, but the community and a nation. Most recently, as I talked to some of the women who will move into my sustainable community one day, I was reminded of a case of a young girl that was raped at the age of 9 who has been behaving badly, as they say now, for several months. While we did ensure that she received psychosocial support initially, the family decided to stop, and now they want to force her into child marriage at an early age. So the girl child is all too often considered to be disposable instead of investing into that child's life and giving her a chance to be educated and empowered to assume leadership roles in her country that will one day open up more opportunities for girls and women. The girl child who is empowered also grows up to be a woman who will not only create more opportunities for other women, but will ensure that critical criminal codes are passed and enforced to protect the girl child and other women from experiencing that fate again. So, you know, we cannot look at this in a silo. We must intervene on the family level and on a national level, but it starts with empowering the girl child to help as a woman to enforce the laws that will change the culture of an entire country.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks, Yewande. Thanks, Dr. Chika and my brother Alibaba. I think we've heard so much from these speakers, and what I want us to do as people asking questions is really think through and let's concentrate on solutions. We're not going to pick any questions around deculturalization as a context, but it will be strictly on the questions based on what we've been told. So my summary is that we have, I think I like the approach of just looking at it from prevention, and I wish it never happened, but I've been reminded by Dr. Chika that when we have it, we also have to deal with it. Leadership is so important, and talking about leadership at all levels. I really like the challenge that we're putting on our policymakers, and I don't know how many of them are online, that 35% of the population of women, of people who are leading, being women is not enough. If 51% of the world is made up of women, why are we asking for 35 in the boardroom? I love that to bits. But I really like the bit about if we teach our children that they are all equal right from the time they are born, and we go into schools, we talk about families, we talk about our society, we empower women, that culture is the thing that needs to be changed. And that means we start by empowering women, investing in our girls, and then pushing our society, forcing our society to work with those key principles. Let me just ask the question to Alibaba then. So what's that drastic solution that we need to put in place to stop men now from raping women?
All right, so there are several things that we can do. First is we need to talk to our religious leaders, because most of these children go through Sunday school or Islamic schools and grow up to become adults. Why I say that education is that about 3 weeks ago, I posted a video of Islamic scholars teaching that a child of 4 and 9 could be married. A child of 4 years old and 9 years old could be married. And so if you have an Islamic scholar who people come to the religious houses to listen to say such things, it means he's someone who is talking to the minds and spiritual consciousness of people who are parents. And so until those kind of things happen, then we will be backing up the wrong tree. We need to talk to religious leaders to begin to inculcate the lesson in people that this kind of thing should not be allowed. And then the economic empowerment of women is also very important. Economic empowerment of women. Legislation, I'll tell you straight now, the kind of politicians we have in the National Assembly in Nigeria will not pass that law. Advocacy will continue, but the number of the sex maniacs that we have in the National Assembly will not pass the law. We just have to continue to put pressure on them. There are many of them who thrive on in fact, they prey on young girls. They prey on young girls. And some of these young girls are people they even put in the conditions that they are in because the young girls don't have work. And then they now use their power of the police and the army to oppress these girls and keep them quiet. So those are some of the things that we need to do. We also need to do something about the boy-child education. The boy-child education is important. The punishments are not stringent enough. The punishment needs to be increased. Then we have enlightenment. There should be enlightenment. Let's name and shame. There's need for enlightenment. There's a need for the punishment to be there. And then there's proper education of the people who teach the children. Because sometimes you will find that the people who teach the children, and we found out most times now that some of those people who teach the children molest the children as well. So we need to have the punishment to be a deterrent to these people. There needs to be a drastic punishment to deter people. You know, when a child is playing with fire and you keep stopping the child from playing with the fire, the child will not know that the fire can burn him until one day just let the child touch the naked flames and it burns him. When you bring it close to the child again, he will walk away. We need to do that to a lot of men. And when men see that that is happening to some other men, they learn from it. The reason some people are wearing nose masks now is because they know people have died from it. So let's begin to use punishment as deterrent. Apart from education, let's use punishment as deterrent. And the legislation is what will help us. But like I said, the people that are in the National Assembly, 80% of them can't be trusted.
Thank you very much for that. May I just invite Mabel? Mabel, please, are you ready to contribute to this, please? You've got something to say, Mabel.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you very much for having me. I equally think that the children themselves can be taught to protect themselves. The age-appropriate sex education is equally available. From 3 years onwards, we teach them what they can understand in order to be able to identify predators, identify those people who are showing them bad pictures, use their language, those people are showing them bad pictures as predators and they run away from them. We also teach them how to not to keep any secret from their parents. Like Ms. Alibaba said, even some of those people who teach children also molest them. So if the children are taught on how to protect themselves, they will be able to report to their parents, whoever tampers with them. Now, I've been working with some children here in Cameroon, and I have really seen some improvements. I've seen some children who are able to identify that this man is a predator. This man tried to tamper with my private parts, and their parents took some actions. And it goes right back equally to the parents. Most parents are unable to speak out. Most parents are maybe ashamed or seeing this particular aspect as a taboo. Even if it happens at home, they are unable to speak out. So we really have to equip parents with the right knowledge on how to be able to speak out if the need arises. Thank you very much.
Thank you ever so much, Mabel, for that intervention and that contribution. May I call on Mrs. Jones to just share a few things with us, please?
I just want to talk about a few preventive measures. I'm very key about prevention. We need to start profiling rapists. Women and boys are already battered. And this time next year, we need to be looking at our data to say that we have reduced and we have curbed the number of people that are raped. So we need to start profiling rapists, profiling them especially with young boys and girls. That is my way of empowering young girls and boys. And we are starting this with another organization in the US and in the North, Muria Mata. So we will be going, hopefully, and we're working with the Ministry of Education as well. So we will be teaching young girls that when you put your hand up in the classroom and tell your teacher that the formula you've just been taught, you don't understand, and the teacher, whether in primary or secondary school, says, see me in my office and let me explain, that is a potential rapist. He should be able to teach you, explain to you in front of all the class, of all the students. So he is a potential rapist. And what do we teach the girls? Make sure you go to his class with 3-4 of your friends to his office. And when you get home, tell your guardians. When a pastor or a man asks a woman to see him in his office, he is a potential rapist without a third party in the room. Or a woman that is vulnerable, maybe she's just lost, maybe she has a health issue or she's just gotten divorced, is very vulnerable, and you've asked her to come into your office to speak to counsel her. Without a third party, you are a potential rapist. You must make sure that there's somebody there to support that woman and support yourself. When family and friends of daddy and mommies come to the house and they give your children sweets and money, and they say, oh, don't tell daddy and mommy because you're special, they are potential rapists. And so it's important that the children understand who rapists or potential rapists are and what they need to do. It is very, very important that we create an atmosphere where the children can come and tell us that Uncle so-so-so-so or Auntie so-so-so-so gave me 100 naira or 1,000 naira and said I shouldn't tell you because I'm special. And when they tell you that, please do not judge them. We also need to, I feel one of the other ways we could prevent and reduce this is to have an easy and simple ABC framework for survivors and victims of rape. We asked 80 youths, we did a webinar last Sunday and we asked 80 youths who were on the webinar, do you know what to do if you're raped? Or do you know what to do if a friend is raped? 75 do not know what to do. Only 5 know what to do. So we need an easily framework for victims of violence and rape to know what to do. I.e., when you're raped, the first place you need to get to is a hospital to get an evidence, not the police station, the hospital. So if somebody who's been raped knows that I need to get to the hospital and that the hospital needs to help you with the evidence and not charge you. We spoke to NAPTIP And NAPTID said they're talking to Nigerian Medical Association to see how, if somebody who's been raped comes into the hospital, you carry out a test immediately. You don't start asking questions before you go to the police, before you contact the likes of Mirabel Center, for instance. So we need an easily, framework that people can do. We also need list of agencies that are doing fantastic work. We've spoken about Mirabel Center, we've spoken about Project Alert and WARIF, including AWLO. We need this list in a place that is easy for people to call. Another thing I feel we should do in Nigeria is a 3-digit number to call. In the UK, you call 999, they ask you what the challenge is. Is it the police? Is it the ambulance? Have you been, whatever it is. We don't have that in Nigeria. You have a totally different number to use in Lagos, and another number to use in Ekiti State, and another number to use in Abuja. When somebody is raped, I don't want to be checking my phone for what number to give them. So I feel that we need an easily 3-digit number. The other thing is that we are running 4 sessions, men-only webinars. We're working with AWLO on this one, men-only webinars, where the men gather and they talk about the issues we're having and how to address it. Men don't feel comfortable sometimes to talk where women are. Mr. Alibaba was talking about, how to do this and how to do that. And a few of us here, maybe we misunderstood him. We need to have men-only webinars. We're starting that on Women Radio, where they will sit down, they will talk, and they will find ways to find solutions. And lastly, we need to get to the head of enablers. There are women enablers. In the North, I have been reliably told, they would sleep with newborn babies or young babies for money rituals. And the women will contact the men and tell them, so is going to give birth in XYZ number of days or time. We need you to come and do what you need to do. We need to get into the head of enablers and educate them. There's so much to say. I will send this some of these things to AWLO, and hopefully we can share it. Thank you very much, AWLO, for organizing this. And please, no means no. We should never blame the victim. It's always a perpetrator. Sorry, no, and so I just want to thank you for this opportunity. Thanks.
Thank you so much for that, Madam. I have heard so much personally. There's a lot going on chat room, and I'm really sorry we're not going to be able to pull everything together. But one of the things that I want us to know is that this has been a very rich webinar. We've heard it all, and I know that AWLO would put things together. But I need to repeat what I say all the time, that responsibilities lie on a lot of quarters. We cannot, for any reason, insist on just looking at it this way. It has to be a multi-pronged approach, from families to schools to our education system, generic to higher education institutions. And I ask the question, Dr. Chika gave some examples, and I cannot get this off my head, because what it said to me was that we are looking at rape as a normal part of living, that you would walk past people, somebody being raped, gang raped, and so on, and we just think it's so normal, and we walk past as normal. We are dead as human beings, because this is so dehumanizing that at least somebody should have said, no, you can't do that, and jump in to break a rep of any sort and do something about it. There's something about sensitizing our societies to see how wrong this is. There are things that must be done at church levels and imams in our mosques. There are things about actually educating children themselves to not see this as normal. And I like the tips that we've been given here about the things that if you were to ask a question and somebody says, come over here and tell me more, you should see the potential. So I had this, identify real and potential rapists and let our children know their vices. I have that so twisted in my brain now that I'm going to even try and create an acronym for it. Identify current potential rapists, profile them, tell their children about the way they play their games, and let's educate and equip our parents to be able to do this with our young people. the ABC framework, and Yewande talked about it, Dr. Chika. Let's have this framework. And I can see this as one main contribution that AWLO can work with other contributors to create, even if it's like a little card that we have there. What are the key things that you need to do? From number one, somebody does this to you, you do this. Somebody, like a flow chart, a framework that helps our young people to say no. It is not normal for people to force you to do anything, never mind force you into sexual relationships of any sort. We cannot tolerate this anymore. We must stop dehumanizing human beings. Our children must be preserved. What a joy to be a child with all naivety. Somebody didn't say anything about this, but I must remind myself how our young people are using technology for evil rather than using technology for good. Why are we watching rubbish? I read so much about kids making love and taking pictures of it and putting on Facebook. And for goodness sake, what's going on in our world? Why don't we teach our young people how to use technology and civilization for good rather than doing it in the way that dehumanizes and binds us as a people? And I really need to say, I've heard it all, and this lays in the platform, in the fabric of everything that we do as a people. But the big thing is, please, negative cultures must not be tolerated. We have to get rid of negative culture. And rape is one that does not belong where humans are. And we have to do everything to pull it out. And this is what I want to end with. There are how many of us on this thing? There are about 72. It's been fluctuating between 70 and 80 to 90 throughout this period. Amongst us are people who have experienced this from both sides, as victims and perpetrators. And I have to say this again. Somebody told me that there is no way you can gather a number of people that you don't see those who have suffered it and those who have done it. So what I need to say, I'm not going to go to the element of being extreme. Castration, let's debate it and look at punishments. But I want to say to all of us, please, let's stop. If we know people in our families who have and are doing this, there is no honor in abusing and oppressing fellow human beings. That's what I've heard tonight. And we all have a role. So we're not talking about not raping or thinking, but we need to root it out wherever it happens. So we have to be completely anti-rape, which means if I know about it, I hear about it, my role is to expose it wherever it is. If we all take that responsibility, I think there will be no hiding place for the culprits. Thank you ever so much for this opportunity. I'm going to hand you back to Anze to take us to the end. Thank you very much, Anze.
Thank you so much, Yewande. It is such a joy and a pleasure to have you here. We appreciate you. Dr. Chika, thank you so much for your contributions and for staying on despite the interruptions with your network. And thank you so much for contributing and for making the time. Alibaba, we appreciate you so much. Thank you again. Professor Achibong, one of the best moderators on my list so far, as I can say. I appreciate you and all of the people that made contributions and shared your viewpoints. We will be sending you a feedback form. Please let us know what you think and share any questions that we didn't answer, or if you have a list of organizations that help to support rape victims, please send them to us. That emergency, 3-digit emergency number is something that I really think we should consider. I appreciate your time. And again, remember to be the one that know that we are the community that we have to start the ending of rape in any environment that we find ourselves in, whether we're in Africa or in the United States or wherever we are. So I can't speak so much. Everything has been said for today. So once again, thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us. We do appreciate you. And you have a wonderful weekend. Be safe out there and take care.
Thank you very much, Anze. Please, can we just put our hands together and appreciate our chairperson of our webinar, Answer, for a job well done. She's been working tirelessly for almost 2 weeks to make sure that we have this very important session. You've already appreciated the speakers. Like I said, we must do everything as an organization to end this pandemic. We can't tolerate this anymore. I want to appreciate our moderator, I call her Funky Prof, for doing what you know how to do best. Thank you so much. We're going to share, the communique will be ready and will be shared to everyone. Also, you've seen the helpline. Other details will be sent out to make sure that we are in tune with what AWLO is doing to end this. The next webinar will be communicated. I want to believe everyone registered. The important, why we ask you to register, so that we can have your email and we can send you newsletters, we can send you more information. And of course, we can also send you some of the solutions, some of the positive things that have come out of this. And that's the only way we can share with you, which is very important. Of course, our webinar remains very free. We're not charging for anything. The only thing we solicit for your support to be able to carry on with this. You can make your donation, and you can just want to support what we're doing. Of course, we have a lot of individuals who make this webinar possible. And of course, Mr. Ben, the engineer, the technical director, the GM, the Kemini, Bello, who do all the writing, the communique. I know she is working so hard. We have Delight, we have Theodora, and all the team members, the committee under the leadership of Anze Mufo for being, and of course, Mongai. Mongai is very busy right now. I don't think he's in the house. Thank you so much for your support. And all the coordinators, I can see the coordinators from different countries. I can see the deputy coordinator. I see the presidents of different AWLO chapters. I want to appreciate you for coming. Yewande, it was so good to have you again. We missed you so much, and I'm happy that you made it possible. Of course, Tess, thank you very much, and all our he for she champions that are in the house. I know that I'm happy that we have so many of them in tonight's session, and that, led by Alibaba. Alibaba, you can see that we have so much to do. We have to just be proactive as he for she community, and you will lead us to make sure that we do the right thing. It's the matter of fact that we need to talk to our young boys. We need to educate them. So this thing is something that we're going to push. We'll push it through our coordinators to reach out to their country to get these 3 reaches, because it's very important. And you also said something about where to go. I didn't even think of it. I know most of us is going to be captured in our communique so that we don't keep you waiting so much. Because sometimes once it happens, we run to the police. But somehow tonight we need to know that it's not even the police. The first place to go is the hospital, which is very important. And that's a very vital information that we have. So I want to appreciate everyone and thank you so much. Please stay tuned to our website, stay tuned to AWLO. And if you want to be part of this movement, we have so many of the coordinators here. You can reach out, you can visit our website, you get more information.